All right, the way we like to start these live streams is by knocking the phone over. Hopefully our connection's pretty decent. We're running on data here. Anyway, guys, welcome to Woodcarving Wednesdays. I'm Alec. This is my good friend Zach. And today is his birthday, and we thought we'd celebrate him by doing a live stream about woodcarving. And there's your notification. So you can watch too if you want, Zach.
Oh, yeah. There we go.
So, so today's going to be a little shorter. I hurt my arm with Zach, actually. We co-counseled at a camp recently, and I was doing my best to hang in there with everybody, and then, of course, comes one of the counselors across the room who is a competitive arm wrestler, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, he's got 4 arms twice the size of mine, which isn't hard to do because I've got little 4 arms.
Shoulders the size of my head.
Yeah, and then he just kind of destroys us. And my shoulder hasn't been the same. My bicep hasn't been the same. Talked to a doctor, and I'm going to relax for a couple of days. So we're just chatting wood carving today. If you have any questions, per usual, the point of this whole thing is just to kind of have a little touch point with you guys in real time where we can talk back and forth. So please, the whole point is for you to chime in below, and let's talk wood carving. Zach is actually recently was kind of I don't know, were you introduced to carving through that bark carving, or have you done it before?
No, I think the first time I carved was in your shop as a few of the friends.
Yeah.
And you had some spare pieces of bark lying around, and I did the feather. Remember?
Yeah, and I wish I had an example of it because it was one of the best examples of a first time carving I've ever seen. No, it was irritatingly good. So you've since come with me in one of my workshops down to visit Abby Peterson. We had a small class there, and people consistently see that carving that you did because he left it in my yard, and they say like, wow, that's a cool carving. When did you do that one? So
yeah, my yard's the size of Alex's back patio, so I just left it on his back patio.
It is really big. It's a big giant head. It's like a life-size bust. So anyway, we got any comment? Nothing yet. Feel free, guys. How is the connection? If any of you are, can you guys hear me, see me, see us, hear us? Okay. We had a pretty bad storm here. I was driving back from the coffee shop to get back to my. There we go. Savage Woodsman's here.
Oh yeah.
To get back to the studio, and I had to pull off the road, and my buddy was just right next door, so I pulled off, and it happened to be his birthday. I'm seeing him later, so I figured, you know what? Let's make him really uncomfortable and put him on the podcast.
Oh, super uncomfortable.
The podcast, the live stream.
Right.
Yeah, so uncomfortable. But yeah, 9 people can see you right now. So.
Oh my goodness. I've never had this much fame before. Yeah, my wife made Alex oh, there's my mother-in-law calling.
Let's put her on speakerphone. No, I'm just kidding.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
My wife made Alex some collard greens and bacon and.
Yeah, so I called. I said, "Hey, I'm driving by," and he said that I might be able to convince my wife to make you some collard greens.
Yeah. So if any of you are ever trying to get Alec to your house, just try to cook some over with some food.
Yep, I'm
Seems
there.
to work.
Anything cooked in bacon is it. Okay, S. Chapman, good to see you too. Savage Wisman says it sounds good. What do we got? All right, so Zach and I are here to answer all your wood carving questions. Yeah, so throw them at us. Or maybe you don't have any questions. Maybe you saw a good movie. Anyone see Oppenheimer? How do you say it?
I don't know.
Anyone see Barbie? You know, one of my favorite things to talk about on these wood carving live streams is Barbie. So.
Yep. It's like that Barbie room at your house. You know, that one that you have all Barbie themed.
Barbie room? Shh. Anyway, he's totally kidding. Okay. Anyway, we don't talk about the Barbie room on live streams. I can't delete this.
You can't delete it?
I can't. I mean, I can, but I can't cut it out of the live stream.
Oh, I see. You can't edit it.
Anyway, the Barbie room is for my future daughter, and I'm just thinking ahead, assuming I have a daughter. Anyway, comedians.
I'll have to tell all these.
In your upcoming book, daughter? Is there any mention of tools? Yeah. In fact, today I was just writing about the concept of hair, which I think could be kind of fun to chat about for a second because it's fresh on the mind. So the way I understand or think about hair is there's kind of three categories I think about hair in, and this goes for curly hair, wavy hair, straight hair, etc. And first of all, I think about the overall form. So you're a great example, somebody with long hair. You can see the major masses, right? So Zach has wavy hair that is long, right? So long hair that's wavy and a little bit less coarse is going to tend to cling a little bit tighter to the head. So notice there's not a lot of volume off the top of his head because the hair itself is very fine. It's a fine hair, and so that's the case generally with wavy hair. You're going to see it's tighter to the skull. Curly hair is generally going to be a little coarser in many cases, not always.
Yeah, actually, if you look at the
stand away. Yeah, look at the depth. Mine's double the height of yours, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So if I had long hair, it would still it would have even more volume because of the curl. So the first thing I think about
nice hair, I get
is so the first thing I consider is the volume, right? The volume or the overall shape. So the second thing I think about are what I think of as groupings. So those are kind of subdividing up the major shapes. So for instance, in my hair right now, I've got a little mass here. I've got a mass here, some smaller ones here. And then within those groupings are subgroupings, right? And those are what make up those larger groups. Those are the kind of ringlets, like these little guys here, right? These are the more densely kind of tight groupings of hairs that make up the major groupings. So these are what I would call subgroupings, right? And so when you're carving hair, a lot of times what you're looking for in straight and curly hair is, straight and wavy hair is S curves, right? So if we look at Zach's hair, if you could just turn your head a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah, that's perfect. Let me throw a light on it. One of the things that you can see is that because his hair is curly, you're seeing undulation. And one easy way to do that is just think about kind of a never-ending S, right? Like, I don't know if it's not really an S at that point, but it's kind of a back and forth undulation, right? And so I'm thinking about, when I call it an S curve, I'm thinking about this kind of shape here, comes around. And then I'm also thinking about eyelets, V's, upside down V's. So anyway, we can get into the weeds here, but we'll avoid doing that. But there's like different kind of ways that you can represent the negative space. Because really when you're carving hair, that's what you're addressing. You're addressing the negative space around the hair, right? You're not carving the hair itself, because that's all carving is. It's reducing the stuff around.
So you're removing the material that's not there,
right,
represented by the carving.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. And that's a trick to get your brain there, but yeah, so the biggest mistake people make is they think about each cut that they're making as the hair itself. Like they think they're carving the V and that is the hair, but they're just removing everything around the hair. So
yeah, you know what I always say.
Yeah.
I just you ask the wood, what are you? What do you want to be? And then you just remove everything else. I'm just kidding. I've done like 2
People
carvings.
do that all the time. People like come up to me and they say like, I think it's Michelangelo that made that like a thing, right? They always say, you know, do you like see it? Do you see it in the wood before it's, it's there? It's like, I don't know, to some extent, like, but you still choose it. It's not like it knows what it wants. There's not some like spiritual countenance that each piece of wood has.
Well, the carving has always been in the piece of wood. You're just freeing it, by removing all the excess material.
That's what it is. Yeah, I feel like because Michelangelo was such a good marketer, he really got he really got people thinking a way about it.
I was gonna say that it's almost like I used to do a lot of magic tricks in my teens, early 20s. As just kind of like a party thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of what you do when you perform a magic trick is just simply it's just like showmanship. It's as much as you can get people's attention away from what you're actually doing.
Right.
And then at that point it adds this level of like mystique to what you do. So I wonder if it wasn't more of a marketing tact.
Yeah,
than
just
it was
like a way of making it look cooler than it actually is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like maybe he has a level of artistic perception of what the material wants to be that maybe the average layperson couldn't perceive.
Yeah, and it's not like they can prove him wrong. Right? It's not like people are arguing. It's Michelangelo, you know.
Or maybe he just was like.
What if he was?
A prodigy.
This would be really embarrassing if like he actually could see.
Right.
The whole thing finished. Right. But there's something to it. I mean, I think when you look at Michelangelo, you're looking at a guy who probably had so many kind of so much homework done before he went into a sculpture that he probably could visualize what he was going to sculpt by the end of that.
It's
right?
possible.
Like thinking about Da Vinci, drawing people from multiple angles. He's probably got such a sense. Like when I'm doing a commission, someone's ordering something, I have to at least draw it from two perspectives, right? The front view and the side view. And in some cases, it's really helpful to definitely to have the reference photo, but even to draw the 3/4 perspective.
Yeah.
So you get familiar, you know what your destination is to an extent. So maybe that's what he was talking about.
Not to detract from the carving, but I think it's similar to any craftsman that's been
Yeah.
working with a certain type of material.
Yep.
You start to get this almost sixth sense
Yep.
about it.
Yep.
Where it's
And
just
you would
that
know this
level of
'cause
expertise.
you would know this because you have a background. Sorry, I interrupted you in metal and working with metal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're shaping metal, whether it's bending or cutting angles or whatever, there's a certain amount of intuition that goes into it. You know, like sometimes you cut two angles and put them together, but because of the material, you know when you weld it, it's going to pull one way or the other.
Right.
So you give yourself a little extra room.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it just comes with time and experience. And
Exactly.
Michelangelo had lots of that. So anyway, this is any questions, any comments? It is always weird when you pause to like read.
Yeah.
Just kind of
for
break
sure.
up a live stream. I'm like going into podcast like conversation mode, and then I'm like, oh, well, there's
Right.
people watching, so I should
Wait.
see.
Let's check on here. You're right.
Yeah. It's raining here. Yeah, you can hear it. Hey, Spike. Yeah, it's slowed down, but where are you at, Spike? We're at about a few drops per second now. It was pouring really, really hard. It was
Yeah.
pouring hard.
Really, really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, another thing to think about these
Okay, the UK.
artisans of old
Yep.
is that they probably had so many more hours in their craft than we typically do. We have so many more distractions in life
Yep.
and a much more busy lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I wonder, granted, also we have a lot of luxuries that save time too. So
Right.
maybe I'm off on that, but it seems as though they would have had a lot more. There's a lot more dedication. Work ethic was just different.
Yeah.
So-
True. Yeah, people's lives were I imagine with Michelangelo, you read about him just like his skin literally fusing to his leather boots. And when he
Wow.
pulled the boots off, like a lot, yeah, tissue came. Ugh.
Ooh.
Let's see some comments here. You may want to try sandpaper alternatives made with cloth-like material. One manufacturer is Abranet. Yeah, I really like Abranet. You know, one way that I've gotten that effect, Carl, I think that's a really good point, is to use, I bumped my horn, is to use a riffler, a file. Similar to the Abranet, it's not like a grit that's held together by an adhesive, so it doesn't deposit the sand or cutting agent into the wood. So yeah, anytime you can avoid sanding mid-carve, it's going to benefit your tools for sure, and that's what Carl's referring to. So what is this? Oh yeah, it is 8, 12, 13.
So you said avoid sanding mid carve. It'll benefit your tools. How is that?
Oh, so when you're... Yeah, so when you'd use sandpaper, some of the bits of the grit
Oh, I got
come
you.
off into
yeah,
the,
and then
in
it'll
the
dull
wood.
out the tip.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it dulls the tool. Yeah. And that's definitely the case with bark too, is there's dirt and grit in the wood already, in found wood. So you're already dealing with that.
Oh.
You're trying not to make that any worse than it needs to be.
Got you.
But the reality is that you're going to face that in wood. I mean, wood is just like a natural material. It's going to be impregnated with all sorts of dirt and sand, you know, silica, whatever. But so I think people make a huge deal out of carving after sandpaper being a huge no-no. I get it. When you work really hard on an edge, you want to maintain that with all of your being, you know,
Right.
because yeah. So I like that. I think he meant to say Abranet doesn't load up and it can be used for a very long time. Yeah, I'll have to play with it again. It's been a while. I had some floating around. Maybe I'll pick some up. But it's kind of like a netting.
When
Almost
he says
like
it doesn't
that's-
load up, is he meaning like the sanding surface doesn't foul out with like excess material?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So have you seen the drywall screens?
Yeah.
It's like for sanding drywall.
Right.
It's a lot like that, but just softer and finer.
Oh.
And so it doesn't wear out as much. I mean, that's my understanding of it. Maybe you guys can explain it better. So
The effect it gives, is it more like a fine grit sandpaper then, or?
I noticed that it actually pulled a little bit more of the hairs out of the bark when I used it
okay.
because of the gaps in it. It kind of like it didn't work quite as well as sandpaper
Not as like polished of a finish.
on the bark, but I'm sure maybe that was just my use case and other. Have you guys noticed that at all? Yes, the wood fibers do not plug the surface of the sandpaper. This is Jim Willock saying, and all I have to do is thump it with my finger and it clears. Oliver Jenkins, greetings from ye old England. Alec, all right. We're international now.
Oh, yeah.
So we're just doing this for a short time because we know that, there's only so much we can do without a demo, and we're just going to talk for a little while longer, but anyway. We're really concerned about sitting in my unair conditioned car for more than 25 or 30 minutes, so just a heads up. It's actually pretty warm in here.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah. So anyway. Let's see, a little update. So I did an art show. Zach and his family came out. Sam, my assistant, came out and visited. Was very, very happy that you guys came and everyone came to check it out. I sold some stuff. It was a successful show. It was definitely exhausting. I think it was similar to camp in that the week before, Zach and I did this counseling for a Christian camp, and it was equal parts exhausting and fun.
Yeah.
And I felt like the art show was similar in that it was like, talking with clients consistently, people walking by, engaging. It can be exhausting, but it's rewarding because you're just having all these awesome interactions with people, and just being able to interact with the people that want to buy your art is so fun. It's rewarding. It makes you feel like all that hard work pays off, both
for sure,
financially and just like there's something satisfying emotionally about it. Just meeting people and talking to them. It itches a real scratch that you don't get itched when you're sitting alone all day making stuff.
Right. Yeah, I think that like seeing people come in and out of your booth during the art show, people are so excited about your work. And I mean, you probably have some people that really know what they're looking at, and then probably even more people that have no idea what they're looking at.
Yeah.
So I imagine for like an intermediate level artist at any medium, it's probably like a bit of an ego boost. Yeah. What I will say, and maybe this isn't the right place to say it, I hope I'm not embarrassing you, but I've noticed you put so much work into like preparing for the art show, like you really work it up in your mind, and you want everything to be excellent.
Right.
So like day one, by the time it was like a couple hours before it was over, I could tell you were exhausted.
Yeah. I was
so right, like
my shop was just a giant dust pile.
Right, but the display looked really nice. So
yeah.
And
I would say that Ann Arbor was the level of art. You probably had like at the average art show, you're seeing a lot of intermediate artists, but I felt like there were a lot of really great artists that representing a lot of professional there. Yeah, so that was really neat to see. I really like walking around.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some of the glass sculpture, and then there wasn't as many ceramics as like some other shows, which was cool because a friend of ours was doing ceramics there. I don't know, what was your favorite booth other than your own?
Oh, well, definitely number one, me.
Of course.
It's all about me. That's a really good question. Oh, remember that? Did you see that painter who was... Oh, can you just text Annalise that I'm alive and doing a live stream? Because I forgot to tell her that I was going to pull over and do it in the car.
So call her
and
put her on speaker. That's what you're saying?
Yep, exactly.
Got it.
Let's see some comments here. I mean, I want to continue that train of thought, but I'm ADHD, so I need to read the comments. Of course, love the podcast with you and Doug, and also love your impression of an English accent. I won't do it for anyone who's actually English. We get out what we are willing to put in. Yeah, true.
Yeah, very true.
So, yeah, I would say there was a woman there who was doing paintings. Remember the flower ones that were? I think Annalise and I were freaking out over.
Like there's like landscapes. They were kind of 2-dimensional though, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But you got the feeling that they were kind of intentionally that way.
Right.
It wasn't like an amateurish move. They were like
it seemed
impasto, very heavy paint.
Yeah, like it was something you would expect to see like in like a tapestry or something.
Yeah. That's a cool description of it. Yeah. So that was probably my favorite artist there. I wish I had my bag to pull out the card and shout him out, but I don't. All I have is a skew. Just keep this in my car in case I need to shank someone.
What were you wanting the bag for?
I think I have the person's card
Oh, I see.
to shout him out. But yeah, art shows, they are completely exhausting. They are so exhausting. And it's why actually let's do this since more of you are going to be watching this later. I'd love to hear you guys weigh in. If I can just be selfish and use this as a quick questionnaire. What do you guys think about selling online? Because one thing I'm working on is growing my Instagram audience, so that if I wanted to kind of do less of the in-person art shows, which I don't do a ton of anymore anyway, that I could do maybe like a drop, right? So I'll have maybe 10 or so carvings that I can drop. You just kind of scroll up to get the comments.
Oh, I see.
I would love to hear any perspectives on that, because certainly it would be a lot less time consuming to just do a drop and then be able to package the carvings and ship them all in a batch, instead of making a portable, because really doing an art fair is making a portable gallery that looks good and then tearing it down and then doing it again the next weekend. It's a really exhausting endeavor.
Have you done a video on what your art show booth looks like?
Yeah, so on Instagram there's a video. Actually, I should have done something for YouTube, but no, on YouTube or Instagram there's a video showing
You should
my booth.
Next one, because you got another one coming up, right? You should do one for YouTube, because what I will say is, walking around the art show, Alex's booth setup looks so much more put together. It's very sleek in a way where it draws attention to the art.
Thanks.
And one of the things we were talking about was displaying maybe one piece versus cluttering it with a lot of different pieces on a panel.
Yep.
And it's just a really neat setup. I think a lot of people would benefit from that. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I was telling him, I did an art show, and it was at the very end of the season. It was like late fall, and I didn't have very much art. I sold most of the art. So all I had were 9 pieces, and I have pro panels, which are a carpeted display panel. I had 9 carvings, one on each 3-foot section. And at the end of the show, these 2 girls dressed in like pageantry outfits with little tiaras came up to me and gave me this giant award. And they said that, I'm like, what is this for? They're like, it's for best display. And that was like a perfect comedy situation, because I was like super insecure. I was telling my parents, I don't have anything. If I sell a piece, my booth is empty, I don't have enough art to fill the booth, let alone if I sell something. And they apparently liked the fact that there was only one carving on each panel. And the only thing I could conclude is what you said, is that people like the sparseness. When you go to a museum or a gallery, you're gonna see it. There's quite a bit of space in between each painting.
Yeah.
And so the best way I can express that is that it looks more important. Like when just one piece, however small, it just has a little bit of breathing room, has its own space.
Yeah.
It's almost like B.B. King, when he plays that note, that whatever it is, that C note, say, he's just gonna hold it out, and he's got that special vibrato, the way he kind of holds his finger across, and he lets that note breathe, and it's it's kind of like, it's just like that. Except
just
not
like
at
BB
all.
King.
Just like
well, it's kind of like
I am BB King.
It's kind of like it's at risk of oversimplifying. It's kind of like supply and demand. The more room you leave for it, the more implied significance. As long as it's over maybe like a minimum quality requirement, and people aren't going to look at it and be like, "Ew, that's gross."
Yeah, right. You don't want to draw a bunch of attention and not.
Right, for sure. If it's at least a certain level of excellence, the more room you can provide.
Right.
Because sometimes by reproducing something, it decreases the value. Right. So.
Let me just say, I'm not quitting art shows. I'm gonna still do an art show or 2 each year. But the idea is just to addition to that, be able to sell. To be able to make stuff access to people internationally who can't trip out to the shows, and to do that. But Oliver Jenkins says, not sure about the U.S., but there's a lack of realistic face carvings in the U.K. Etsy, either way, promoting and selling your work online sounds like a great idea when you can't do it in person. Oh yeah, Etsy said, okay, a couple people are mentioning Etsy. It sounds like the norm, but it's a good place to find creations for sale. Getting your name out there so people know. I've done it once before. Chapman says, I'd rather sell in person.
More personal and I sold online.
Yeah, I don't like that. I love interacting with people at shows. They would feel like it would be more just for the money if they did it there. Yeah, I can see that. I can see all those points. That's why I haven't done it yet. I like the in-person stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, it is nice. Even for the there's limited time that I was at your booth. There was, I think, multiple people who are going to the show, saying that they had conversations about you on the way in, or were looking for you there.
Yeah.
So it's cool to have the people that frequent the same show,
Right.
and then see you over and over again. It probably being in front of people. I mean, you get people who want to buy again because it's almost like part of the tradition.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I guess it's almost kind of like it's the analogy falls apart at the end, but it's almost kind of like having a live show versus a pre-recorded album. You know, like people can see the paintings and the sculpture and the glass and in real life. Some people prefer that experience to seeing it online.
Yeah, for sure.
And then those who can't afford it, they don't get to see it in person because they can't get it home. Right. So the art shows are cool for people that just want to, like me, who often can't really afford to buy some of the really expensive artworks that are there. So
yeah, it's kind of, I think, a catch-22, because on one hand, you would have more time and mental energy not preparing for shows to focus on selling more online. You could sell more pieces, whereas maybe in doing so, there'd be less perceived value to it. Like whereas when you go to a show and you meet the artist and kind of get a little feel of their personality and their story.
Right.
So I'm not sure.
Yeah. The moral of the story is I'll probably keep doing at least some art shows.
Yeah.
At least one or two. But anyway, that's enough about me. Anything you guys want to talk about before we get off? I know we talked about going for about 30. We got about 4 minutes left. So if anyone has anything, any comments, questions, concerns, any let's see, I had a question recently. I forgot what it was. Oh, yeah, I'm just curious how all y'all got started. Feel free in the comments if you're watching this, post below. I'm just curious how, that's the video I made yesterday, was how I got started, and I'm just curious how people come to carving, because it seems like it's not super common that people get really into the hobby of carving.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious how that happens for folks,
Right. One thing, while we're waiting for people to comment, just to draw attention to something that Spike had said on here, you kind of get out what you put in. I was thinking about that recently, how I find myself hesitant to start things that I'm not really excited about. Like if there's something I'm really excited about in a season, then I know I'm going to do it to a higher level of excellence.
Right.
Whereas if I'm not as excited about it and I'm not committed to it, so it's got to be some level of like consistency or that excitement. Some of it comes as you get better. I think you were saying the other day, once you get a certain level of experience, then you start to get your passion for something grows.
Right.
So
yeah, it's true. Yeah, it does. And sometimes even in the pursuit of the wrong things, right, you can find really good things out of it. Like a lot of people, they're very averted. There's a big aversion to like making money, talking about money and art, and even if you're purely just going after value, you just want to make as valuable art as possible, you're probably going to still end up with good art, because you're going to try, what's the best way of making, unless you go the scammy kind of banana tape to the wall type stuff,
right?
You're probably going to make better and better art to do that. So I think it's Martin Luther King who says, King Jr., who says basically that God uses man's desire for lust to drive him to marriage, his desire for power to altruism.
Interesting.
And he goes on and talking about how not our motivations can sometimes lead us into good places. Yeah.
I don't know. I will say that I tend to focus more on like the economic side of things. It's just for those of you who don't know, which is 100% of you, I work in insurance and I'm dealing with numbers and that type of thing all the time. I grew up wanting to do it. I'm just kidding. Nobody goes out wanting to be in insurance, but so I'm guilty definitely of looking at value, but value's only there because there's somebody who appreciates it.
Right.
If you say, hey, there's tons of value here, but people are only willing to spend $5, then the value is $5.
Right.
The better quality you can make something, the higher the value is. And so using that as a gauge, how much people appreciate it. Like they say, beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Right.
So if it's more valuable to me, then I'm just going to keep all my art.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know how much space you have for carvings, but
Yeah, and that's not really something people can do who do if that's their career.
Right.
Yeah,
For sure.
I mean,
So you
no
have
matter
to
how
think
much
about
you
it.
love something, it can be sad sometimes when you really love something to part with it. Which is why I think it's funny that some artists will like purposely disattach from their character. Like musicians, for instance, right? What are you selling when you're selling when you're a musician? You're selling your image. You're selling not only just your music, but you're selling your image. You're selling your
Yeah.
kind of your thing. And some people will, like Dolly Parton, went to some far extreme with her image and her kind of persona that she was
Oh,
able
I
to kind
see.
of disattach from it in a way.
So you're saying she kind of creates like this alternate person,
Yeah.
and it's like a character.
Yep. Yep. So I
Interesting.
can see why some people might make art that they're not as in love with as a way of kind of feeling like they don't have to attach to it so much. Like they're not making stuff that they like because then they can off it easily. You know, they can like sell it.
Oh, that makes
I wonder
sense.
if that's a thing.
For sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean it's like when you go to some whether it's like a yard sale or like the neighborhood sales that they have, like
Right.
some people are really attached to their stuff
Yeah.
because somebody else gave it to them
Right.
or whatever, and the prices are exorbitant.
Right.
Or I went to one recently, I bought a shovel for like 50 cents.
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, there is a little bit of like the sentimental value.
Mm-hmm.
I think Carl just said something on here.
Oh, let's see. What did Carl say? Carl says, father-in-law taught me I've been carving since 1980. Started with ducks, now caricatures, Santas, songbirds, and significantly more detailed ducks. Mostly use butternut. Butternut is awesome. Butternut is an awesome material. Mr. Linker got me hooked. That was Carl. This is Spike Willow says, Mr. Linker got me hooked on carving, and it's just snowballed since then.
Yeah, that's when you know you found the right thing, when it just snowballs.
For real.
As you get better, it just the desire to do it grows. Yeah. for
Yeah,
sure.
unless you're rolling down a hill in winter, it's not a good thing.
Right.
Maybe some lower value carvings online. Yeah, so Oliver's saying maybe you could just do lower value carvings online. That's possible. Cool. Yeah, thanks for chiming in. Well, I'm gonna call this to a close. I appreciate you waxing life and business carving and all that stuff, and Zach and you guys as well. Thanks for the time, and we'll talk to you soon.